You are sitting there right now, forcing down another thick, chalky protein shake, believing with every sip that you're doing the right thing. You have been conditioned to believe that this is the only way. Swallow the sludge, endure the bloating, and somehow, miraculously, the muscle will disappear. They told you that you need 2 grams, maybe even 3 grams of protein per pound of body weight just to maintain your hard-earned gains. They plastered it on magazine covers. They shouted it from the YouTube rooftops, and they printed it in bold, aggressive letters on the side of every neon-colored plastic tub in the supplement aisle. But I need you to stop and think for a single moment about who is actually feeding you this information. You've been sold a lie, a multi-billion-dollar, meticulously crafted lie designed not to build your physique, but to empty your wallet while slowly destroying your internal organs. Welcome to the great protein scam. The truth they're hiding from you is that your body is not a furnace that just indiscriminately burns everything you throw into it. It is a highly evolved precision instrument of survival. When you flood your digestive tract with an excessive, unnatural amount of isolated whey protein, your body goes into a state of triage. It does not look at that 3rd chicken breast or that 4th scoop of powder and think, let's build more muscle. Muscle is metabolically expensive. Your body only builds it when forced. Instead, your liver and your kidneys are put into overdrive to process the massive influx of nitrogen. The kidneys have to filter out the toxic byproducts of protein metabolism, specifically ammonia and urea. You are not building a godlike physique. You are creating systemic inflammation. You are rotting your gut microbiome, creating an acidic environment where nutrient absorption plummets. That constant feeling of lethargy, that heavy, bloated sensation in your stomach, the terrible digestion you have just accepted as a normal part of the bodybuilding lifestyle, that is your body screaming at you to stop. Why would they lie? It is the oldest reason in the book. Greed. The fitness industry realized decades ago that you cannot patent hard work, and you cannot put a barcode on pure discipline. But you can process dairy runoff, flavor it with artificial sweeteners, package it in a massive tub, and convince an entire generation of young men that it is the magic elixir to their insecurities. They created a problem, the fear of losing muscle, and then they sold you the cure. They sponsored athletes who are pumped so full of synthetic hormones they could grow muscle eating nothing but cardboard. And they told you that their secret was drinking 3 shakes a day of this specific proprietary blend. You are trying to mimic the diet of a chemically enhanced genetic freak, applying it to your natural body, and wondering why you feel like garbage and look exactly the same as you did a year ago. Look back at the golden era. Look at the men who built physiques that look like statues carved from marble. Look at the raw, dense, aesthetic muscle of the 70s. These men were not carrying around gallon jugs of water, laced with fluorescent amino acids. They were not waking up in the middle of the night to force-feed themselves cottage cheese. They ate whole, bioavailable foods in moderate quantities. They understood that digestion is the ultimate bottleneck of muscle growth. If you cannot break it down, if you cannot assimilate it, it is worse than useless. It is toxic. They relied on intense, brutal training to stimulate the muscle and just enough high-quality nutrition to let it recover. They respected the biological limits of a human body. We have lost that respect. We have replaced instinct with marketing. Today, right here, that delusion ends. I am going to tear down everything you thought you knew about nutrition. I am going to show you exactly what happens inside your bloodstream when you overdose on protein. We are going to explore the forgotten, old-school principles of bioavailability, nitrogen balance, and true digestive health that the supplement conglomerates pray you never discover. If you want to keep living in a fantasy world, blindly handing over your money for tubs of flavored dust, turn this off right now. But if you are ready to strip away the lies, if you have the discipline to handle the brutal, unfiltered reality of how muscle is actually built, then listen closely. Because what I am about to tell you will change the way you look at food, training, and your own body forever. Let us look right under the hood. What actually happens the moment you swallow that massive 50-gram protein shake? You have been trained to picture it rushing straight to your biceps, repairing the micro tears, and instantly building new tissue. It does not. The human body operates on a delicate, highly regulated tightrope called nitrogen balance. Nitrogen is a fundamental building block of amino acids, the very stuff that makes up your muscle tissue. To grow, You must be in a positive nitrogen balance, meaning you are taking in slightly more nitrogen than you are excreting. The supplement industry took this basic, foundational biological fact and twisted it into a grotesque exaggeration. They told you that if a little positive nitrogen balance is good, an absolute avalanche of it must be spectacular. That is not biology, that is marketing mathematics, and it is entirely false. Your body possesses something called an amino acid pool. Think of it as a small, highly regulated reservoir floating within your bloodstream. It is not a boundless ocean. It has a strict, non-negotiable maximum capacity. When you consume a massive bolus of protein, you overflow this reservoir almost instantly. The body cannot store excess protein for later use the way it easily stores fat or carbohydrates in your tissue and liver. It simply does not have a protein warehouse. So, what happens to the overflow? Your liver, the hardest working organ in your body, has to step in and perform a desperate rescue operation through a demanding process called gluconeogenesis. It violently rips the nitrogen atom off the amino acid, turning that expensive, premium protein into nothing more than cheap glucose. Sugar. You are paying $80 a tub to drink sugar that your body will likely just store as body fat if your glycogen stores are already full. But the tragedy does not end there. That nitrogen atom that was ripped away does not just vanish into thin air. It forms ammonia, a highly toxic, poisonous compound. Your liver must quickly scramble to convert this ammonia into urea, which is then dumped into your bloodstream for your kidneys to desperately filter out and excrete in your urine. When you consume 200 or 300 grams of protein a day, you are forcing your internal organs to run a marathon of toxic waste disposal 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are aging your kidneys at an accelerated rate, raising your blood pressure, and stressing your entire system just to process the excess food you never needed in the first place. And this is all assuming you actually digested the protein to begin with. The reality for most of you is far worse. Most guys cannot even break down the food they are violently forcing down their throats. Your stomach needs a highly acidic environment to cleave dense protein molecules into usable peptides. When you eat constantly, grazing every 2 or 3 hours like the fitness magazine command you to, you never give your stomach acid a chance to fully replenish. You are sending partially digested, putrefying matter straight into your intestines. This undigested protein sits in your gut, feeding pathogenic bacteria, producing sulfurous gas, massive bloating, and widespread systemic inflammation. You are literally carrying around pounds of decaying matter in your digestive tract, utterly destroying your nutrient absorption. You could be eating the highest quality grass-fed food in the world, but if your gut lining is inflamed and compromised, you are absorbing a microscopic fraction of it. If you want to stop destroying your health and finally learn the biological truths of muscle growth, hit the subscribe button right now. You have to understand and accept that digestion is the ultimate bottleneck of physical enhancement. It is never about what you eat. It is strictly about what you can assimilate at the cellular level. The guys who make the fastest, most dramatic progress are not the ones eating the most. They are the ones digesting the most efficiently. When you lower your protein intake to what your body can actually handle and utilize, a miraculous thing happens. Your digestion clears up overnight. Your stomach flattens out, stripping away that bloated, watery look. The chronic, heavy lethargy disappears because your body is no longer spending massive amount of energy trying to process excess sludge. Your liver and your kidneys finally take a breath. And most ironically, your muscle growth actually accelerates. Because for the first time in your life, your body is in a state of harmony, able to seamlessly absorb the precise nutrients you give it without fighting a constant, exhausting internal war against toxicity. Let us step back from the modern hysteria of the fitness industry and look at the men who actually carve physiques out of stone. I want you to look closely at the golden era, and specifically, I want you to look at Mike Mentzer. If you do not know who Mike Mentzer is, you are missing the absolute most crucial piece of the muscle building puzzle. Mentzer was not just a mass monster, he was a philosopher. He was a thinker who rigorously applied the scientific method to human physiology. While his competitors were spending 4 hours a day in the gym, doing 30 sets per body part, and gorging on endless mounds of food until they felt physically sick, Mentzer was doing the exact opposite. He understood something fundamental about the human body that the modern supplement industry is absolutely terrified you might figure out. He understood the profound biological limits of recovery. Mentzer championed a brutal, uncompromising system called heavy duty. He would walk into the gym, perform 1 or 2 absolute, total failure sets to trigger the muscle growth mechanism, and then he would leave. He would sometimes rest for 4, 5, or even 7 days before training that muscle group again. But here's the critical part that the mainstream fitness media completely ignores when they talk about Mentzer. They look at his training, but they ignore his fuel, because he was not violently destroying his muscle tissue for hours on end every single day. His protein requirements were drastically lower than what the magazines tell you is necessary today. He did not need 300 grams of protein because he was not constantly breaking down tissue in a state of chronic overtraining. He stimulated the muscle with terrifying intensity, and then he gave his body the absolute peace, the time, and the moderate balanced nutrition it needed to actually overcompensate and grow. If you want to build a dense aesthetic physique like a classic Greek god instead of a bloated modern science experiment, hit the subscribe button right now. Look at the sheer density of Mentzer's muscle. Look at the deep, granite-like separation, the tight vacuum in his midsection, the absolute control he had over his body. Now compare that to the top tier of modern fitness influencers and bodybuilders. What do you see today? You see massive, distended stomachs. You see the dreaded bubble gut. You see an unnatural, watery, heavily inflamed look that is a direct, undeniable result of forcing the human digestive system to process massive surpluses of calories and 400 grams of isolated protein powder every single day. The modern gym goer has turned themselves into a walking garbage disposal, constantly inflamed, constantly fighting a war against their own internal organs. Mentzer ate a balanced diet. He ate a substantial amount of carbohydrates for energy. He ate dietary fats for hormonal function. He did not treat protein like a magical deity. He treated it as exactly what it is, a necessary but biologically demanding macronutrient that is only useful in precise, limited amounts required for recovery. The hard, biological reality is that building muscle is an extremely slow, metabolically expensive process. Your body does not actually want to do it. It views excessive muscle mass as a liability, something that requires precious extra calories just to keep alive in a survival situation. You cannot force feed growth. If you are training properly, if you are actually reaching true, agonizing muscular failure like Mentzer advocated, your body only needs a fraction of the protein you think it does to synthesize new tissue. The magic does not happen when you are desperately chugging a chalky shake in the locker room immediately after your workout. The magic happens 3 days later, while you are sleeping in total darkness, when your nervous system is recovering and your body quietly utilizes a moderate, highly bioavailable amount of nutrients to fortify the muscle fibers. By constantly eating, constantly flooding your system with heavy proteins, you're interrupting this quiet, delicate process of recovery. You are keeping your blood pooled in your stomach and your body in a constant state of digestive stress, instead of a state of profound growth. Mentzer proved decades ago that you can build one of the greatest, most aesthetic physiques in human history by doing less. Less volume training, less force feeding, and less obsessing over arbitrary, fabricated protein numbers pushed by companies that just want to sell you more powder. He relied on pure intensity and cold, hard logic. He utterly refused to be a victim of the marketing machine. You have that exact same choice right now. You can continue to be a blind consumer, following the herd into systemic inflammation and plateaued gains. Or you can become a brilliant student of your own physiology. You can start respecting your digestive system, lowering your toxic protein intake, and giving your body the actual internal environment it needs to thrive. You have spent your entire lifting career obsessing over the back of a nutrition label. You count the grams of protein like a desperate mathematician, completely ignoring the biological reality that what you swallow is absolutely meaningless if your body cannot assimilate it into your cells. The fitness industry created a massive, highly profitable illusion by pretending that all protein is created equal. They want you to believe that 50 grams of hyperprocessed, artificially flavored whey isolate scooped from a plastic tub is the exact same physiological substance as 50 grams of a pasture-raised steak. It is the greatest nutritional deception of the modern era. We're going to stop counting empty, toxic grams today. We are going to implement a high-efficiency protocol based entirely on a forgotten, old-school scientific principle, bioavailability. This is a precise measure of how much of a nutrient your body can actually extract, absorb, and utilize without creating massive amounts of inflammatory waste. Let's talk about the undisputed king of bioavailability, the single most perfect muscle-building food on the face of the earth, which the medical establishment and the fitness industry has spent the last 50 years relentlessly demonizing. The whole egg, not the egg white, not the pasteurized liquid carton you pour into a pan because you're terrified of dietary fat, but the entire, unadulterated egg. When you throw away the yolk, you're throwing away the very lipid profile your body desperately requires to synthesize testosterone naturally. You are throwing away the fat-soluble vitamins, the choline, and the cholesterol that acts as the direct biological precursor to every single anabolic hormone coursing through your veins. A whole egg has a biological value score of 100. It is a literal gold standard by which all other proteins on Earth are measured. Your body utilizes almost every single microgram of an egg with near zero waste, zero gut inflammation, and zero toxic burden on your liver and kidneys. 3 whole eggs cooked in real butter will do infinitely more to build dense, mature muscle tissue than a 60-gram shake of cheap, rapid-digesting whey powder that heavily spikes your insulin, disrupts your gut microbiome, and leaves you starving an hour later. If you are ready to stop eating like a brainwashed consumer and start fueling your body like an apex predator, hit the subscribe button right now. The protocol requires you to instantly abandon the sterile, flavorless modern bodybuilding staples that are slowly destroying your digestion. Boiled chicken breasts and plain white Tupperware rice eaten 6 times a day is a guaranteed recipe for micronutrient deficiency and digestive suicide. You must return to the foundational foods that human beings evolved to thrive on over millions of years of brutal survival. Red meat, ruminant animals like beef and lamb possess unique, complex digestive systems that filter out naturally occurring plant toxins, leaving you with the most pristine, nutrient-dense, easily absorbed amino acid profile available in nature. The natural animal fat in a ribeye steak or ground beef is not your enemy. It is a dense, slow-burning, premium fuel your central nervous system requires to recover from the brutal, agonizing workouts that actually trigger genuine muscle growth. When you eat a heavy, deeply satisfying meal of red meat and eggs, your body is profoundly nourished. You do not need to eat again in 2 hours. You do not need to constantly graze like a domesticated, captive animal. This brings us to the final, most crucial pillar of the high-efficiency protocol, which is a concept of digestive rest. The magazine industry explicitly told you to stoke the metabolic fire by eating every 2 to 3 hours, keeping your internal organs in a perpetual, exhausting state of heavy digestion. We're going to do the exact opposite. You will eat 2, maybe 3 substantial, incredibly nutrient-dense meals a day, and then you'll completely stop eating. You will give your stomach acid the critical time it needs to naturally regenerate its strength. You will give your intestines the biological downtime they desperately need to heal the cellular lining and sweep out the decaying matter left behind by years of pointless force-feeding. When your digestive tract is finally empty and at peace, your body finally has the surplus energy and internal resources to turn its attention outward, directly to repairing the micro-trauma in your muscle fibers. You're going to eat drastically less total volume. You're going to consume far fewer gross grams of protein, but your net cellular absorption will absolutely skyrocket. You are stepping out of the modern matrix of endless, mindless consumption and finally entering a state of physiological mastery. You are standing at a crossroads right now, and what you do next will dictate the entire future of your physique and your health. Everything you have heard today directly contradicts the artificial gospel you have been force-fed since the first day you ever picked up a dumbbell. It is incredibly uncomfortable to sit there and realize that you have wasted thousands of hard-earned dollars and countless hours pouring toxic sludge down your throat simply because a charismatic salesman in a fitness video told you it was necessary. Your ego is fighting you right now. Your brain wants to fiercely reject this information because accepting the biological truth means admitting that you were manipulated by the very industry you trusted. But this exact moment of internal conflict, this heavy cognitive dissonance, is the exact place where true, lasting transformation is born. Building a legendary physique is only 10% physical exertion. The other 90% is ruthless, uncompromising mental fortitude. You have to possess the sheer psychological violence required to murder your own deeply held misconceptions. The fitness industry completely hijacked the word discipline and weaponized it against you. They systematically convince an entire generation of men that discipline means blindly following a miserable, gut-rotting meal plan of dry chicken breasts and chalky artificial powder every 2 hours until you feel physically ill. They told you that suffering through terrible digestion, toxic bloating, and chronic lethargy is the noble, heroic price you must pay for greatness. That is not discipline. That is pure subservience. True discipline is the absolute refusal to be a mindless, easily controlled consumer. It is a supreme courage to stand completely alone in a crowded gym, training with terrifying, agonizing intensity for 20 minutes while everyone else performs junk volume for 3 hours. It is a quiet, unbreakable confidence of walking right past the neon supplement aisle, knowing with absolute scientific certainty that you do not need their highly processed plastic tubs to build your body. Discipline is trusting the millions of years of human evolution encoded in your DNA over a 30-second sponsored advertisement designed to make you feel inadequate. If you are finally ready to burn the modern rulebook, reclaim your internal health, and build the dense, aesthetic physique you actually deserve, hit the subscribe button right now. The herd will always aggressively mock what they do not have the intellectual capacity to understand. When you drastically drop your toxic protein intake, when you start eating deeply nourishing, whole, bioavailable foods, and when you spend significantly less time in the gym to allow for profound cellular recovery, the modern gym bros will laugh at you. They will loudly tell you that you're going to lose all your hard-earned muscle. They will tell you that you're doing it completely wrong because you're not frantically drinking neon liquids out of a plastic shaker bottle between every single set. Let them laugh. Let them continue to desperately build their watery, inflamed physiques while quietly battling the devastating consequences of their own rotting digestive tracts. You are no longer playing their rig game. You are stepping completely out of the fabricated matrix of modern bodybuilding and returning to the golden era of physical mastery. You are no longer desperately chasing arbitrary, meaningless numbers on the back of a nutrition label. You are chasing the highest possible function of the human organism. The dark journey you are embarking on today is not just about building wider shoulders or a thicker chest. It is about fundamentally rewiring the way you interact with the world and the information you are fed. It is about demanding the brutal, unfiltered truth in a society that constantly tries to sell you comforting, profitable lies. From this exact moment forward, you are going to fiercely question every single piece of conventional fitness wisdom you are handed. You're going to become a brilliant scientist of your own physiology. You're going to listen closely to the raw biological feedback of your own digestive system. And you will ruthlessly eliminate any habit, any food, and any supplement that does not serve your ultimate progression. The pathetic era of blind, desperate consumption is dead. The era of the thinking athlete, the sovereign individual who takes absolute command of their own physiology, begins right now. The iron is waiting for you. But this time, you are approaching it with your eyes wide open.